Hello, everyone. Good morning and good evening, whenever you are. This is Bianca from USC. Welcome to the series of USC online event to learn knowledge from different academic fields. And it's wonderful to see all of today here. So today's event is, are you ready for the PhD? Preparation and stepping stone towards graduate programs. The guest of today's event is Axel Schönthal. Axel is the Associate Professor of the Department of Molecular Microbiology and Immunology, and the Associate Dean for Biomedical Master's Programs from USC Keck School of Medicine. So we're grateful and lucky to listen to his seminar today. So if you are interested in applying for PhD, please watch today's seminar carefully. And dear audience, please know that we will have about 15 minutes Q&A part after the speech. Feel free to type your questions at any time into the chat box. We will try to get as many questions as we can at the end of the speech. Kindly remind, please mute yourself during the presentation for a good event quality. Thank you. So let's welcome Axel. Welcome, Axel.
Thank you very much, Bianca. I really appreciate your kind introduction, and I'm very happy to be here to give what I hope is a very informative session about PhD programs and how to get into PhD programs, how to become a PhD, how to get your foot into the door of PhD programs. So as was mentioned, I'm actually located at the University of Southern California at the Keck School of Medicine in Los Angeles. And I have been here at this location, at this university for about, well, a very long time. So I have some insight. I'm on various admissions committees, both for the medical school, for the MD program, for the PhD programs, for the master's programs. And on occasion, I help out with undergraduates as well. So what I would like to do in the next minutes or half hour, 45 minutes, give you a short introduction and overview of how to get into PhD programs, how you can prepare for it starting today. And I envision, let me put on some slides here to show you where this is going. Let's see, share screen right here. Let's do the full program. So I'd like to tell you about the preparation and stepping stones towards graduate programs. The outline of today's review and presentation shown here, the agenda. I'd like to tell you something you probably already know. What is a PhD student? A brief definition. And then discussion. Are you ready for it? What makes for a competitive application to a PhD program? And what can you do now to prepare for a PhD? What if you don't get in? Do you have a plan B? How could that look like? And we will talk about that. I will follow this. The first half is very general about programs and preparations. And then I would like to follow up with a few specific examples from my environment here at the Keck School of Medicine of the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. I will show you a few photos of our research facilities. I'll show you links to further information, and we will certainly have time for plenty of questions. And as a reminder, feel free to take screenshots. So the first half is very general, and I will follow this up with specifics about some of our programs. So what is a PhD student? It's obviously a graduate student. And all PhD students conduct some sort of research. A few of them may participate in some teaching, not all of them, but some may. Very few PhD students are part-time, most are full-time, and full-time, you might have heard, with PhD studies means really full-time. It's not an 8 to 5, 7 to 8 hour per day job. Usually PhD students are more mature students because they've already completed undergraduate studies, they're more experienced, which also means that the expectations are higher. PhD students may have arrived immediately after their undergraduate studies, which is the case usually for the majority of PhD students, but some also come after completion of a master's degree or after spending time in the workforce, say as a research technician, for example, working for a biotech company. All this previous experience means that PhD students have strong study skills. They know what they're doing. They have spent time building academic qualifications in the lead up to entering a PhD program. So, are you ready for a PhD? You should ask yourself, do you have a personally satisfying reason to undertake a PhD? Different people obviously have different reasons, and in the next slide, I will present to you some of them. Maybe you will recognize some of your reasons in that slide. Are you as hardworking as you are intelligent? Well, successful PhD students are not necessarily more intelligent than the unsuccessful students. They just are more determined and work harder. Certainly, determination is a good quality in becoming successful as a PhD student, and working hard or harder also can be quite helpful. Will doing a PhD enhance the type of career you want to pursue? You have to ask yourself, is it worthwhile? No, if I have a PhD, can I advance in the career I envision? There are some careers where it's not necessary to have a PhD to advance far. Pick, for example, banking. You can become a banker, a successful, say, investment banker without a PhD. However, in the biomedical sciences, the answer is generally, you need a PhD if you really want to advance all the way. And my presentation is mostly related to biomedical health sciences studies, although many of the recommendations I will show you also apply in general to getting into a PhD program in other fields as well. Are you patient enough to do a PhD? Are you determined enough to work on a project, meaning on a project, on one project for 4 to 6 years without getting an immediate reward? Well, patience is a virtue. And of course, you need to have the necessary qualification. Each university has different requirements and prerequisites, although many are very similar. All universities want to see that you have done well in your undergraduate studies and that you're overall suited and appear determined to become a successful PhD student. And do you have enough time available? As I mentioned, obtaining a PhD requires several years. It's usually a minimum of 4 years. The average is about 5 years. Sometimes it goes longer. So it really can be a long haul. So how about talking about the reasons to undertake a PhD? In particular, personally satisfying reasons. A reason could be that you realize that learning and solving problems is exciting, and no amount of money can replace the excitement of solving problems. Now, I also throw in money here because the issue of money always comes up, and you probably know by now, as a student, you are not rich, and You eat a lot of ramen. That's what I did when I was a student. And you get rewarded for having not a lot of money on the other side by getting exciting challenges, solving problems. Or some people may think, hello, doctor, being referred to as doctor may indicate acknowledgement of achievement. And for some people, it might be very important to get the title to be recognized as an accomplished person. Or you may have the idea of changing the world. Idealists choose a PhD because they want to make the world a better place. And if you're very smart and intelligent and you have a PhD, it can all work together and help to become more involved in important issues and in important teams and in important bodies of, say, government, where people actually listen to you, what you have to say, based on your experience and your knowledge. Or change of scene. Undertaking a PhD might offer a chance to leave home or the country and experience personal freedom, different people, and new environments. I can tell you that in my case, I left my home country, which was at the time Germany. I did get my PhD in Germany, but I did my postdoc at UC San Diego, in San Diego, of course, in the United States. So I had to travel all the way from my home country. How long was it? 10,000 miles to San Diego, bring nothing but one piece of luggage. And it was exciting, being far away from home, different environment, experiencing personal freedom, different people. It was really, really exciting. So, and I cherish those days back. I spent 4 years in San Diego as a postdoc. It was fantastic. Now, a PhD may also be attractive because of freedom of thought, being able to be creative and applying flexible thinking. Or some people say, well, I got nothing better to do. Let's do a PhD, which probably is not the best choice. But then succeed in getting into a PhD, your interest will quite likely develop and your excitement will grow. So as part of the application, what makes graduate coursework? And it is clear grades are important. That guarantees you to get in or not get in, because the GPA, no matter how high it is alone, will not get you in. But I give you some benchmarks here. If your GPA is above 3.5 out of 4, it usually is considered acceptable, meaning there's no problem with your GPA, and the committee will look at other things in your application. If your GPA is between 3.0 and 3.5, it will still receive some consideration, but only if other parts of the application package are really outstanding and impressive. If you submit an average application and your GPA is below 3.5, in most cases, you probably will not be able to get into a high quality PhD program. If your GPA is below 3.0, that's usually a no-go, meaning you will not usually get in with a 3.0 unless there are extraordinary circumstances to really look beyond and forgive the lower GPA. In addition, the coursework selection will be considered too. For example, a grade of, say, A- in biochemistry is really considered a very good grade, and biochemistry in the life sciences is very relevant. And it's considered more worth than, say, a grade of A+ in history. because in the life sciences, it's not that important how well you know history. It's much more important how formed in biochemistry or related courses, cell biology, and other life sciences courses. For admissions into the biomedical PhD programs, the coursework should include classes in relevant topics such as biology, biochemistry, virology, microbiome, biotechnology, chemistry, and similar. So life sciences courses for life sciences PhD programs. Part 2, research experience. Remember that as a PhD, you're expected to perform research, and you're expected to have interest in research and dedicate your next several years to performing research. Therefore, it will be very helpful if you have some research experience. The admissions committee, they would like to see that you know what you're getting yourself into and how you have done in past research involvements. So if you are serious about getting into a PhD program, you should participate as much as you can in undergraduate research opportunities, which is the minimum, I'd say, that is expected of an applicant to a PhD program. Or if you don't get into a PhD program right away, you can volunteer in research after your graduation and fill a gap year, or you can do research as a postbac research fellow, or you can do a master's program and do research in a master's program that is focused on performing research. Or if you have the opportunity to work as a research technician, say in academia or in a biotech company for a few years, that also will enhance and strengthen your research background. Okay, so research for a PhD applicant in the biomedical science is very important. The personal statement, also called essay or statement of purpose, will always be looked at as well. And it should tell the committee members why you are the ideal candidate to be admitted. Why do you think they should admit you? So you should consider writing about these points. You should briefly summarize your background. For example, you can tell, how did you realize that you want to become a professional researcher? And ideally, avoid childhood stories. Don't tell about when I was a little kid, I collected butterflies and whatnot. Start with more serious issues. How did you get in? How did you raise your interest in research? And look over your paperwork. Not everything is summarized in your transcripts or in your resume. If there are things that you think you have achieved in academia or done in research, explain it in your personal statement and emphasize how your prior experience has prepared you for a PhD program. Why do you think you will succeed as a PhD student? Why did you choose the program you're applying to? All programs will ask you sooner or later, why did you apply to us? What do you think is attractive for you in our program? So you need to know details about the program. They will also probably ask you, or you can write it already in your essay, what are specific research questions you might be interested in researching. They want to see that you have ideas and you can put them in writing about research, that you have given it some thought. Okay, so research experience, but also when you state your statement of purpose, write down what you think from your perspective you would like to do in research, and what are some of the unanswered important questions that you would like to tackle in a PhD program. Then letters of recommendation, there are in part out of your control, of course, because they're written by other people. And in my experience, really everybody has good letters. I have really not seen bad letters where a professor would say, oh, this student is just terrible. Don't admit him. Stay away from him. It does not happen. Everybody has good letters, but some students have outstanding letters. So if you want to impress the admissions committee, make sure, try to obtain outstanding letters. How do you do that? Well, you have to think carefully about who do you ask to write letters for you. Ideally, those are professors or high-level research supervisors who know you very well, so they can provide positive details about you. Okay? And ideally, the person also knows much about your research experience, and hopefully you have by then some research experience. You have impressed the professor so they can actually write about your research experience. And reach out and request a personal meeting with the professor if possible. Tell them what you'd like to accomplish and ask them friendly for a supportive letter, and send them your resume or hand them your resume, your CV, or other materials, and say, well, could I please meet with you, review this? I'm so interested in research. I would like to apply for PhD programs. And for that reason, I would like to ask you for a supportive letter. Okay, and then the interview, nowadays, oftentimes it's online, sometimes in person, but keep in mind, if you receive an invitation for an interview, you already have your foot in the door. It means that the admissions committee already considers you suitable for admissions. They would not offer you an interview for screening. The paperwork is for screening. And the interview is to follow up to make sure that the person is really as strong as the person appears on paper. And your objective during the interview is to convince the admissions committee that their initial judgment was correct. Okay, that you are in person as convincing as your paperwork. What for PhD programs in the biomedical sciences, what admissions committees look for in particular is that you are able to clearly explain your past research. So be prepared to present to them your past research and describe it to them. What was the question? Why did I do it? How did I do it? What was the result? What's the interpretation from it, and so forth. Okay. They also would like to see that you can articulate plans for future research that you would like to do, that you have a vision of your education in the future, a vision of what you would like to accomplish. And also important, you need to be familiar with the PhD program that you're applying to. You need to know a few faculty members by name and what they're doing, their research topic, maybe some of the coursework, so you can explain to the admissions committee why this program is the program you really want to get into. You have to make a case for them, and you explain to them, I know this professor is doing that work and it's so interesting. That's where I would like to participate if I could. And this is one of the reasons I chose to apply to your programs. Things like that would are impressive for the committee members. So the commitments, once you are in a PhD program, you might know that already. The effort, it is not like a 9-to-5 job or 9 to 17 o'clock job where you clock in 8 hours Monday through Friday and then you take off. working in a PhD program is all effort in, all hands on deck. When I was a PhD student, I worked 6 days a week and Sundays a quarter day usually. So I did a lot of work and I was fairly successful with what I accomplished. And you also have to realize it's very narrowly focused, because you pursue a research question for an average of about 5 years. So you spend all your effort on one fairly narrow topic. And the time frame of 5 years sometimes can be longer depending on the complexity of the study. Say, for example, if you need specific transgenic animals, transgenic mice to perform the studies, and the transgenic mice have to be generated first before the study can even be done, that takes quite a while to create transgenic mice. Okay, so, and everything takes time, including preserving what has been done toward the end, namely writing the thesis, putting everything together, putting all the figures together, the text, the references. It takes time, and defending the thesis. And ideally, if all goes well and you have exciting results that are important to share with the rest of the world, hopefully, you also want to participate in writing manuscripts. And ideally, during these 5 years, there will be maybe 2, maybe even 3 manuscripts that come out of that research and will be published. And that's one of the most exciting parts also, getting published. So what can you do now, today, starting today, to prepare for a PhD? In short, you can practice your organization skills and time management, because as a PhD student, you are pretty much your own boss. You have a supervisor, but it is expected that you know what you're doing under the guidance of a PI, and you are more or less on your own working hours and managing your research project. In shape, which is probably something you already knew. Just like athletes train their muscles, you need to train your brain by reading academic books and journals. So beyond the usual coursework, in addition to taking courses in biochemistry, biology, chemistry, you should start reading scientific journals. And my recommendation is always Nature magazine and Science magazine, because they also in their front pages have nice summaries of ongoing research developments and a nice overview of additional aspects of science. So start reading Nature and Science. Those are weekly magazines. They're online as well. Start reading those and make an effort to understand the text, getting used to the scientific language. Learn how to work in a group and how to take criticism. That's also important. Practice presentations whenever you can. As a PhD student, you will be part of a team and you will receive critique and you will give critique. And it's very good practice to be used to that. It's the daily bread and butter of science to critique. Everything needs to withstand critique. So you need to desensitize, so give critiques to others. Work on your language skills as international students. If you apply to, say, the United States PhD programs, you will need a TOEFL or an IELTS language test, unless you have done your undergraduate degree done already in the United States with English language instructions. Then you don't need these language tests. And also tip number 5, very important, create a plan B. That means if plan A doesn't work, and plan A obviously is getting into a PhD program, if that doesn't work right away, it's a good idea to have a plan B. And what could a plan B constitute? It could be to create stepping stones to strengthen your resume to reapply to PhD programs again at a later time. So if you don't get into a PhD program right away, do not sit idle without adding, meaning strengthening your resume. Spend a year pursuing volunteer work, or spend a year or 2 or 3 in a research-related job in industry or academia, or pursue a master's degree that focuses on research. And pursuing a master's degree that focuses on research is a really strong plan B because it combines research with teaching. So very briefly, for the next 10 minutes, I will wrap up by showing you examples from my environment, which is the Keck School of Medicine in Los Angeles at the University of Southern California. Okay, there are 3 campuses. We have the University Park campus, Health Sciences campus, and Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. At the medical school, we're very proud that most of our programs nicely combine theory and practice, meaning in addition to the coursework, we focus quite heavily on hands-on research. So the PIPS program is the program in biomedical and biological sciences. It's called PIPS. It's an entry program to get into one of 4 biomedical PhD programs that are listed here. And I remind you, you're very welcome to take a screenshot. And here's the website for the PIPS program. So if you go to this website here at keck.usc.edu/PIPS, you will get all the information about requirements, details, structure, and so forth about these 4 PhD programs. Now, the beauty of PIPS is as follows. Students that are accepted into PIPS, they spend the first year with general coursework and 3 rotations. So all students, I go back one moment. So we have 4 PhD programs, but students do not get directly admitted into these 4 programs. They first get admitted to PIPS, and PIPS is 3 research rotations in 3 different laboratories. And at the end of this first year, then students pick one of the 4 PhD programs. So after 1 year, they have done 3 rotations. They're familiar with the programs. They're familiar with the professors. They're familiar with life on campus, life in Los Angeles. So at the end of year 1, they make a decision, which laboratory would I like to join? Which PhD program among the 4 would I like to join? Which professor would I like to work with for my thesis? Okay, so the beauty of this is that the students have the first year available to really get acquainted with everything in the environment before they make their final decision and spend the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years working on their thesis. Okay, so the interested candidates that apply to the PhD programs, they do not apply to individual professors. They apply to PIPS. And once admitted to PIPS, the students do 3 rotations in 3 different laboratories during year 1. And at the end of year 1, the students decide which PhD program they want to go to. Now, in addition, we also have master's programs, and we have 20 different master's programs, and those in yellow are master's programs that very heavily focus on hands-on research. And for students who are not able to get into a PhD program right away, such master's programs that are listed here that are hands-on research are ideal stepping stones to be more successful for the PhD program. And here's a QR code. Make sure there's a big one. So this is the website and the QR code. Make sure you take a screenshot. You get all the information about these stepping stones that we have here at our university for hands-on research that can help strengthening applications for PhD programs. And I will show you a few slides from our campus. This is the Norris Comprehensive Cancer Center. There's lots of biomedical research going on. There's patient care. So patient care and research goes hand in hand, which is great because there are many patient samples available and clinical studies available to further the research. This is the Zilkha Neurogenetics Institute. Obviously, as the name says, focuses on neurogenetics. This is Stevens Neuroimaging Informatics Institute, the Center for Regenerative Medicine and Stem Cell Research. And here's an inside view. Most of the laboratories have this open architecture where it's not individual rooms, but it's a very open arrangement where researchers are also encouraged to talk to each other more, see each other, and interact and collaborate. This is another inside view. You see here in the background on this picture on the left, very messy. This is how we like it. Very messy. It means research going on, stuff going on. People are busy working. So those are examples from our campus. Okay, so in summary, this is the final slide. For PhD programs, it helps to be proactive and prepare early. And beyond doing well in science-focused coursework, it's important to get involved in research activities. And having a plan B can be very helpful if you have to think about what do you do if you don't get in a PhD program right away. Working as a research technician for a few years can provide additional experimental skills and expertise to strengthen the CV, or research-oriented master's programs can provide the perfect stepping stone to achieve admissions to a PhD program, because it also provides for advanced coursework in addition to research training. And the USC Keck School of Medicine, I showed you some of the examples. We have outstanding educational research opportunities in the biomedical sciences, just like many other great universities around the world. Although I should mention that we are located in Los Angeles, which also provides a terrific city as a background for those weekends where people take off a night out of town and enjoy themselves. And in addition to the different PhD programs here, we have also many master's programs that offer hands-on research training along with opportunities to getting published. Okay, so this is the last slide of my presentation. Here are contacts for further information. The top is for the PIPS entry program, and the bottom is for the biomedical master's programs. Here's again, if you want to take a screenshot, the QR code. And I thank you very much for your attention. And we certainly have time for questions. And I see that also Bianca put a few things in the chat. So make sure you check the chat for the links to some of these URLs that I mentioned. So thank you very much. I appreciate your attention. And let's see whether we have some questions.
Yes, thank you, Axel. Thank you very much. So we know a clear and detailed process for applying for the PhD, and yeah, we learn a lot, and it's really helped. So, and also thank you for your clear summary. And there are some questions from our live streaming platform. So let's go through the first one. Hi, Professor. What is the difference between a master's program suitable for pursuing a PhD and other master programs, like in the curriculums or something else? Thank you.
I'm not entirely sure I understood the question. What is the difference between master's programs and PhD programs?
Between a master program which is suitable for pursuing a PhD and other maybe normal programs.
Okay, all right. I think I got that question. So not all master's programs are good stepping stones for PhD programs. If your goal is to get into a PhD program and you did not get in the first application and you think about pursuing a master's program as a stepping stone, you should definitely select a master's program that has hands-on research as a clear component of the curriculum. For example, I am the director of a master's program in molecular microbiology and immunology. And our program focuses very much, in addition to coursework, also on hands-on research. So all our students are required after 2 years to submit a thesis. So on day one, when they enter into our program, they're encouraged to select a laboratory, join a laboratory, and start experiencing lab work and participating in lab work. And it's very strongly encouraged. Same with, say, the master's program in biochemistry or the master's program in pathology. They all want to see students come to the lab and spend time in the lab. And usually what happens during the first semester, everything is new for students. So they spend some time in the laboratory. They're getting used to, oh, where are the pipettes? How do I make buffers? And it's all new. But starting with the second semester, they really get involved in ongoing research and getting their feet wet and getting experience. And at the end of usually a 2-year master's program, they write a thesis, they submit a thesis, and usually it much strengthens their resume to apply again for a PhD program. So when you select a master's program as a stepping stone, look out for and ask for, what does the program offer with regard to research? How much can I participate in research? What is available? That's the answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's very, very helpful. And our Zoom has some questions. Whether GRE is important for PhD application. Thank you, Axel.
Yeah, so GRE becomes less and less important. Many PhD programs have deleted the GRE requirement, including, I can tell you what I told you about the PIPS program here at USC. We do not require the GRE any longer, although a few of our master's programs, they still require the GRE, but they are also in the process of deleting the GRE. So the GRE becomes less and less important. Certainly at USC, it's mostly gone.
Yeah, the GRE is less and less important. So thank you very much. And the next question is about the reference letter. Norman asked, hi, Professor, if one of you students asks for a reference letter from you, normally, what will you write in the reference letter? Thank you very much.
Okay. What I usually write in the reference letter are 2 parts, actually 3 parts. I write about the performance of the student in coursework. So I write a little bit about how the student did in the coursework and what the GPA currently is. And I get a lot of that information also from reviewing the file of the student, but also from seeing the students in class. The second part is I will write a little about how the student performed in research, because especially letters to PhD programs, they would like to see comments about research. So I write a little how the student did in research. If the student is in my lab, then of course it's easy to write about the research. If the student is not in my lab, I usually ask the professor where the student is working in the lab and get comments from the professor that I incorporate. And then I also write in the letter, please also, for further comments and details on the research, maybe the PI can provide further details. And the third and final is 1 or 2 sentences about the personality of the student. I usually write, it's a good team worker. The person is very supportive of others, helps others around, has a nice personality, and that rounds up usually a letter of recommendation. And I see the next question. It says, can a food and science and technology major apply for the Keck School of Medicine project? The answer is yes. Okay, if you have as an undergraduate or in a professional life some experience in issues related to biomedicine or the life sciences, you're already considered. And food science and technology, yes, you would definitely fit for, you would certainly be considered as an applicant. If though I should mention, for PhD programs, if you have a little bit of research also. And then the next question is, I wonder whether a publication is required to make a strong application. The short answer is, it is not required, but if you have a publication, it will certainly increase the strength of your application. Because if you are an author, a co-author on a paper, it means that you have done some sort of scientific research that was worthy enough that your name was included as an author. So a publication is a very strong plus point in any application, whether you apply to a PhD program or a master's program. And I think even if you apply, say, to biotech, because it's a badge of honor. If your name is on a publication, it's like a badge of honor. It proves, it demonstrates to the world, you have done something worthy with regard to research. Okay, and then a question is, can I apply for a PhD if I take a course, master's degree at USC? So if I understand this correctly, I'm not entirely sure what this exactly means, but you can always apply for a PhD, no matter where you are, what you do. The question, of course, is, will you be competitive and successful? If you take coursework at USC as a master's student, some of the coursework, in fact, most of the coursework that we have here at USC is the same for master students and for PhD students. So if you get your master's degree, say in my department, which is molecular microbiology and immunology, you can already take several of the courses that are also required for a PhD as a master student. And then when the time comes, when you apply to a PhD program elsewhere or at USC, they already see, wow, you have taken this advanced coursework that's already PhD level coursework, you have done very well. So that can also strengthen your application. And if you are lucky enough to get into the USC PhD program and you have already taken some of the classes, of course, you already have them out of the way. You don't have to take them again as a PhD student. So that's actually an advantage. So and then there's the question, how many units are included to complete the PhD? It's usually about 60 units, but as a PhD, there's a big difference between PhD units and master's units, especially at USC. As a PhD student, you generally speaking, you will get a fellowship, meaning you obtain financial support, and your professor, when he or she takes you into the lab as a PhD student, they will pay the tuition for you as the PhD student. Now, as a master student, you have to pay your own tuition. Okay, that's a big difference. So master's programs generally are fairly expensive, and the tuition fees, they vary from university to university. As a PhD student, you have a big advantage that usually you do not pay for the tuition. Okay, and then there's a question, when is the deadline every year to get the application submitted? In general, every university has different deadlines, but I can tell you that at our university, USC, it depends. For the PhD programs, the deadline is toward the end of the year. It's either end of November or sometime in December, which is fairly early because the selection process starts in January and interviews usually take place in February and March. For the master's programs, it depends on the program. Some programs have 2 or 3 deadlines per year for different semesters. In my master's program, where I'm the director, molecular microbiology and immunology, we have 1 deadline, which is May 1st for admission into the fall semester. Okay, so master's program, usually the deadlines are during the spring semester. For the PhD programs, the deadlines are usually toward the end of the fall semester. And then there's a question, can I apply for a PhD if I have no research experience? The short answer is yes, you can always apply. Nobody can prevent you from applying to any PhD program. But the question, of course, what you really mean is, how competitive am I if I have no research experience? And I can tell you that most PhD programs in the biomedical sciences, they do want to see some research experience. And some PhD programs, they want to see quite a bit. I can tell you here at USC, at the Keck School of Medicine, those PhD programs, they really want to see quite a bit of research experience. And during the interview process, they also want to talk half the time about the research you have done already. And they want to see, can you explain the research that you have done? Have you understood what you were doing? And can you interpret experimental results? If you have no research experience, no, you cannot talk about these things. That would make it very difficult at USC. So, as I said, some other universities may be not as strict, but it depends really on the program. But so in general, though, for a PhD, you need some experience, also for your own sake, because remember, a PhD program on average is 5 years. It's focused on research. That's what you do for 5 years. And you should really get into such a big, long commitment only if you have done it a little bit before and you know, you have a feeling for what you're getting yourself into. Okay, and then there's a question, 2 questions. Do I really need to, in advance, reach out to the professors I may like to work with in the future before my application submission? Is this a must-do step during my application or before that? So the answer to that is no. You do not need to reach out to the professors. And maybe I was somewhat misunderstood. I did not mean, for example, when you apply to USC PhD programs, you do not reach out to professors. You submit your application to the PIPS program and you get admitted to PIPS. And if you get admitted during the first year, then you get to know all the professors. But in your personal statement, you can mention professors. You can say, if like my name, you can say, oh, for example, Dr. Schönthal is doing research on brain cancer. I find this very interesting. This is something I would find interesting to participate in. You could write that in your essay without contacting me. And during the interview, they will probably ask you, well, what type of research are you attracted to here at USC? Why do you apply to us? Tell us a little about that. And then you could say, well, for example, Professor Cast, he's working on developing vaccines for HPV, cancer types, and so forth. That's something that really interests me. I would like to participate. I could see myself participating in that. And you say this without having contacted Professor Cast in advance. So you don't need to contact professors. And then is the step of being invited to participate in an interview an inevitable step? Shall this step happen during the period of waiting for the final admission? So yes, the answer is yes, interviews will happen. If you are selected for further consideration, they will invite you for an interview. Nobody at USC at least, okay, at USC, nobody gets accepted without being interviewed either in person or at least via Zoom. And they would like to see your face, how you talk about research, what is your background, and so forth. And then if the master's GPA is below 3.5, does it have negative impact? I would say no. The master's GPA probably becomes somewhat less important at this point if you apply directly from undergraduate to a PhD program. The GPA should be above 3.0. But if you get into a master's program that's focused heavily also on hands-on research, and say you get a GPA of 3.3, but you have done nice research and you have demonstrated that you're able to do research, maybe even become an author on a paper, that weighs heavily. Okay, so at this point with master's programs, the PhD admissions committee, they want to see a lot more what you have done in research. So the GPA becomes less important if you apply from a master's program to a PhD program. So contacting professors in person or by email before application is key part to get offer. The answer is no. As I just explained, do not contact the professors. Submit your application to the program. And because professors, contacting professors will not help. If I get an email from somebody saying, oh, can I join your laboratory for research as a PhD student? I say, no, it's not possible, because all PhD students have to apply to PIPs, to admissions committee. They are not allowed to apply to individual professors. And for master's programs, it's very similar. You submit your application to master's program. You don't need and you should not contact individual professors. Although, again, during the application, it's okay if you know a little bit about individual professors, and in your application, you can say, I'm interested in working, say, with Dr. Schönthal, doing some research because his work on brain cancer is very interesting. But you don't need to contact Dr. Schönthal beforehand to write that in your application. And then my bachelor major is Chinese medicine. And I'm thinking of changing my major from master's or PhD degree to the biomedical field. Is it acceptable? What should I do to be more competitive? I would say changing the degree, my major from master's or PhD degree. Now, if you are talking now, I'm not sure I understand, if you're talking about your undergraduate studies, you don't have to change your major, but as an undergraduate, you do have to show coursework in health sciences related fields. And Chinese medicine, nothing wrong with it. But in addition, you probably want to take a course maybe in cell biology or biochemistry on top of it. For if you're talking about a master's, if you are in a master's and you are doing Chinese medicine, well, it depends. Again, nothing wrong with Chinese medicine, but add some conventional let's call it Western medicine style classes, biochemistry, or cell biology, virology, microbiology, these type of classes. All right, and there's a comment, somebody came from a different field. Nothing wrong with it. There are many interesting fields outside the biomedical sciences. Computer science is terrific. Software engineering, these are smart people. I congratulate you to be in that field. And University of Southern California also has great programs in computer science and software engineering at the School of Engineering. Yes, I'm not very familiar with those programs, but I know they're well respected and acknowledged and very high quality. So good luck with this. And yeah, maybe we see each other on campus, who knows?
Yes. Thank you, Axel. Thank you very much. So it's really great to help the students in the Zoom and in the live streaming room. And I believe the audience has also learned a lot of valuable information. But due to the time limitation, we have to move on to the next step. So we have around 3,000 viewers in our live streaming platform, and before the ending, would you like to give some advice to our audience? Thank you, Axel.
Thank you very much. And Bianca, I must admit, what would you like me to do? I must have missed what you were requesting.
Sorry about that. Would you like to give some award or advice to our audience as the ending of your seminar? Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, so I think in summary, we have covered a lot, and I appreciate your patience. If you're still here, you have patience after 1 hour. Getting into PhD programs is not easy, and it's competitive because a lot of people decide they want to apply. And the reality is there are a lot of smart people in this world, and the competition can be fierce. This is why everybody has to think about, how do I stand out? How am I a little bit different from all the other applicants? So interest and commitment and enthusiasm goes a long way, okay? And some people, they may try to get into a PhD program because maybe I could say for the wrong reasons, because maybe their parents say you have to get a PhD, it's very important, it's just esteemed. No, you have to be convinced yourself because it's a big effort, it asks a lot of you. And I have very high respect of everyone, whether they get into PhD programs or not. There are many smart people out there. And research in the biomedical sciences, research goes a long way, because a PhD in the biomedical sciences is about research. So when you are an undergraduate, you can think about early on, how do I get some research experience? And an early start certainly can set you apart from others. If you have a late start and maybe you don't get in because of research experience or the lack thereof, as I presented, there are No, there's a plan B, there's stepping stones to make up for it. And hopefully what I presented to you is informative in that regard. And we can always follow up with further advice to make you successful and to make you become the best you can be.
Thank you very much. That's really helpful. That's really helpful. Thank you for joining us today. So that's all for today's seminar. Thank you very much. Thank you, Axel.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Axel.